The wind screamed across the high ridges of fallen timber as night settled in like a closing fist. Snow swirled in thick white sheets, burying the world in silence. Only one sound broke through the storm: the low, ragged breathing of a woman tied to a broken fence post. Evelyn Wyatt could no longer feel her hands, or her feet, or her face. The cold had stolen everything but the pain. Her coat was gone, her scarf too. Her dress hung in frozen shreds, and her babies, her 3 newborn baby girls, were pressed against her chest inside the thin cotton of her blouse, their tiny bodies barely warm enough to hold on. She forced her chin down and checked them again. One whimpered weakly. Another gave a faint cry. The third didn't move at all. The storm swallowed her fear before it could leave her lips. Her husband, Caleb Wyatt, had dragged her out of their cabin at sundown, screaming scripture, swearing she'd cursed him by filling his home with useless daughters. He'd tied her to this fence and left her here to freeze, believing God would send judgment. But judgment wasn't coming. Death was. Evelyn's breath trembled as she whispered to the girls, "I'm so sorry. Mama's here. I won't let you go." A gust of wind slammed against her, bending the half-rotten fence, rattling the ropes that held her wrists. Snow stung her eyes like needles. Her lips split when she tried to speak again. Her world blurred. Her knees weakened. Her vision dimmed. And then, out of nowhere, she heard it. Hoofbeats. Slow, heavy, measured, cutting through the storm like a heartbeat pounding against the dark. Evelyn forced her head up, unsure if she truly heard them or if her mind was slipping. But then a shape appeared through the snow. Tall, broad, steady, a giant of a man on a black horse. He rode closer, lantern light swinging from his saddle, throwing gold on the blizzard-whipped snow. As he came near, the horse snorted, stamping its hooves. The rider stopped. He took one long look at her, frozen against the fence, arms spread, 3 tiny bundles pressed against her chest, and his breath caught. "Sweet Lord," he whispered. Evelyn tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. The man vaulted off the horse in a single powerful step. Snow kicked up behind him. He moved to her fast, but careful, his large gloved hands checking the ropes holding her. "Who did this?" he asked, voice low and hard. She tried to answer, but everything blurred again. He didn't wait for words. He cut the ropes in 2 strokes. Evelyn fell forward, and he caught her before she hit the ground. His arms were warm, solid, steady. "Easy," he murmured. "I've got you." He lifted her like she weighed nothing at all. And as her head fell against his chest, Evelyn caught the faint scent of pine smoke and leather. Clean, grounding, safe. He carried her to his horse, shielding her body with his own as the wind tore at them. When he opened her blouse to check the babies, his jaw clenched. "Hard. 3, he breathed. 3 little ones? And he left you out here?" Evelyn closed her eyes. The shame burned deeper than the cold. The giant rancher swore softly, not at her but for her. Then he pressed 2 of the babies inside his coat, against his bare chest, tucking one beneath each arm to warm them with his body heat. He placed the silent, still third against Evelyn's chest and wrapped his coat around them both. His voice dropped to a fierce whisper. "You're not dying out here. Not tonight." He mounted the horse with Evelyn across his lap. Her daughters held tight against him and pulled the reins. The horse lunged forward through the storm. Evelyn's head rested against him, her breath faint. She tried to keep her eyes open, but darkness kept pulling her under. "How far?" she whispered. Her voice trembled like a dying flame. 3 miles, he answered. "My ranch is just ahead. You hold on to me, you hear? I need you to stay awake." She swallowed. "I can't." "Yes, you can." His voice turned. Firm, deep as a riverbed, steady as stone. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Evelyn." He nodded against the top of her head. "Evelyn, I'm Jonas Barrett, and I'm not letting you go." The horse fought the snow. Jonas kept his body curved over hers, shielding her from the worst of the wind. The lantern swung wildly from the saddle horn, throwing fleeting shadows across the snow. Evelyn felt warmth spreading through her, but not from the cold unraveling. From him. He whispered softly, urgently, coaxing her through the storm. Stay with me. Stay awake. Your girls need you. My girls, Evelyn breathed. Yes, he said. All three. One whimpered again, the one tucked under Jonas's arm. He shifted protectively. That's it, he murmured. You cry, little one. Cry loud. Means you're still fighting. They pressed on, minute after minute, until the outline of a large barn appeared through the swirling white. The lantern light flashed against its snow-covered roof. Jonas leaned close. We're here. He didn't waste a second. He slid off the horse with Evelyn in his arms and shouted toward the barn. Cordelia, open the door. A warm yellow light flared as an older woman pushed the door open, snow swirling around her feet. Jonas, she gasped. Good heavens! Who is no questions yet? Jonas strode inside. Stoke the fire. We need blankets. Hot water. Now. Cordelia, sharp-eyed and strong despite her age, moved fast. She dragged thick quilts from a chest, threw more wood on the fire, and motioned for Jonas to lay Evelyn on a bed of hay. Evelyn's eyes fluttered. She saw the fire, the lantern light, the safety of walls, a roof, warmth, and she let out a sound that wasn't quite a sob, just pure relief. Cordelia knelt beside her. Oh, sweetheart, the older woman whispered, touching Evelyn's cheek. What happened to you? Jonas didn't answer. Not yet. He gently removed the babies, one by one, laying them in Cordelia's arms. Two cried weakly. One didn't. Cordelia's face tightened. We'll warm them, she said firmly. We'll warm all of them. Jonas spread quilts over Evelyn, rubbing her arms to bring back circulation. His voice stayed calm, steady, anchoring her to the world. You're safe now, he said. I promise you that, Evelyn. Nobody's going to hurt you again. Her cracked lips trembled. You shouldn't help me. He leaned closer. And why not? My husband, he'll come. Her eyes glazed with fear. He'll be angry. Jonas's expression turned dark, thunder gathering behind his eyes. Let him come, he said, his jaw tightening. The fire popped. The wind howled outside. And Jonas Barrett, the giant rancher of fallen timber, sat beside Evelyn Wyatt as if he'd already decided something deep in his bones. Something final. Something dangerous. Something that would change all their lives. He met her fading gaze. Evelyn, he said quietly, you and those little girls are mine to protect now. And I am to do just that. Her breath hitched. Why? She whispered. Jonas didn't look away. Because no decent man leaves a woman and 3 newborns to die in the snow. A tear slipped from her frozen eyelash. Come with me, Jonas whispered. Let me help you. Evelyn closed her eyes as the warmth finally overtook her. And for the first time all night, she believed she and her babies might live. Warmth hit Evelyn like a wave. When she woke, she didn't know how much time had passed. The storm still howled outside, but the barn glowed with firelight, soft and golden. Her body ached, her skin burned, and her throat felt raw. But she was alive. More importantly, her daughters were alive. Cordelia sat near the fire, rocking the babies in her arms one by one, checking their breathing, rubbing their tiny limbs to coax warmth back into them. The older woman hummed softly, an old frontier lullaby that wrapped the barn in gentleness. Evelyn blinked, her voice barely a whisper. Are they? Cordelia turned her way and smiled. They're fighters, sweetheart. All 3. Weak but here. Evelyn pressed her trembling hands to her face. Thank God, a deep voice came from the shadows. Thought you'd say that. Jonas Barrett stepped into the light. Snow still clung to his hair. His coat dripped near the door. But his eyes, those steady dark eyes, were locked on her, sharp with concern. How much do you remember? He asked gently. Evelyn swallowed. Her throat burned. You cut me free. The girls, you saved us. Jonas gave a single nod. And I'd do it again. He knelt beside her, making his massive frame seem suddenly gentle. But you need to eat. Cordelia made broth. Cordelia snorted softly. I'm trying. She's so exhausted, the poor thing drifts in and out. Jonas motioned toward Evelyn. Try a little more. Cordelia brought the tin cup. Evelyn managed, 2 small sips before her hands shook so badly that Jonas steadied the cup for her. Her eyes lifted to his. I don't understand why you're doing this. Jonas leaned his forearms on his knees. Don't need to understand, he said. Just need to rest. But Evelyn, his voice was soft but firm. You and those babies were tied to a fence post in the middle of a storm. That alone is reason enough. She blinked hard, fighting tears. Her husband's voice flashed in her memory, shouting scripture, calling her cursed, slamming the cabin door as he dragged her outside. She shivered. Jonas saw. Do you hurt anywhere new? He asked quietly. She shook her head. No, just cold and tired. His jaw tightened, not with annoyance, but with anger. He didn't aim at her. Cordelia, Jonas said, can you give us a minute? Cordelia hesitated, then nodded. Make it short. She's in no shape for talk. Cordelia moved to the far side of the barn with the babies. Jonas shifted closer. Not touching, not crowding, just present. Evelyn, he said, I need to ask something important. She braced herself. He took a slow breath, eyes fixed on hers. Did Caleb Wyatt do this to you? The name alone made her flinch. Jonas's hands clenched, knuckles white. I thought so. She looked away. I don't want trouble. Jonas exhaled through his nose, a long, controlled breath that sounded like a man reigning in a storm. Trouble already came, he said, and it wasn't from you. Evelyn shook her head desperately. You don't know him, Jonas. When he's angry, he's not right in the head. He'll come here. He won't set foot on my land. You can't know that. I do. Ow. His voice deepened, quiet but unbreakable. Because anyone who comes for you now comes through me. Evelyn stared at him. The barn seemed to fall silent. Even the wind outside softened, waiting for what she would say. Her breath hitched. No one has defended me in a long time. Jonas's jaw softened. Then it's past time someone did. The storm raged for hours. Jonas moved through the barn like a silent giant, feeding the horse, tending the fire, checking Evelyn and the babies with a carefulness that surprised her every time she woke. At one point, she drifted into sleep and woke again to find her daughters lying between heated bricks wrapped in quilts. Their tiny faces had more color. Their breathing was stronger. Cordelia sat beside them, knitting. Evelyn whispered, Thank you for everything. Cordelia gave her a warm smile. Child, I raised 4 babies of my own and buried 2. A woman never stops wanting to help another mother keep her children alive. Evelyn's throat tightened. Cordelia reached over and squeezed her hand. You're safe here. Jonas won't let harm touch you. Evelyn swallowed. What kind of man is he? Cordelia's eyes went soft. The steady kind, the loyal kind, the kind who carries more grief than he ever talks about, and the kind who'd rather take a bullet than see a woman or child hurt. Evelyn stared into the fire. Steady, loyal, protective. Everything Caleb was not. Cordelia leaned back. He's also alone. Been alone for years. Built this ranch from nothing after serving in the war. Lost his wife early on. Never remarried. Evelyn's breath caught. I'm sorry, she whispered. Cordelia nodded. He never healed from it. Not fully. But he's opening up again. I can see it. Because of me? Cordelia gave a tiny, knowing smile. Not because of you. Because you needed saving. And Jonas is a man who can't walk past someone broken. Broken? Evelyn echoed. Cordelia reached out and brushed a strand of hair from Evelyn's face. You're not broken, sweetheart. You're bruised. You're tired. You've lived with a cruel man for too long. But nothing about you is broken. Evelyn's eyes filled. Tears she hadn't allowed herself in months. Years. Cordelia gently wiped them away. Rest now. Tomorrow will be brighter. Sometime deep in the night, the barn door creaked. Jonas entered, his coat dusted with new snow. He walked straight to Evelyn. Not rushed. Not startled. Just purposeful. I thought you might be awake. She nodded weakly. He crouched beside her again. His presence made the cold feel far away. He rubbed his hands together to warm them, then gently checked her forehead and fingers for frostbite. Your color's better. My baby's still fighting. Hard. She closed her eyes. Jonas paused, watching her. Evelyn, he said quietly. You don't have to go back to him. Her breath caught. You don't even know me, she whispered. I know enough. What do you know? He spoke without hesitation. I know you're strong. I know you'd freeze to death before letting go of your girls. I know someone hurt you, but you didn't let it turn you cruel. And I know any man who'd harm a woman like you doesn't deserve to breathe free air. Her chest tightened. She hadn't heard words like that. Not ever. Jonas looked toward the stall where the babies slept. I'm not saying stay forever, he added. Just stay until you can stand again. And Caleb? She whispered. I'll deal with Caleb. Her heart stumbled. What do you mean? He met her gaze. I don't bluff, Evelyn. The barn went silent. Even the fires seemed to pause. Jonas Barrett was not a man who made empty promises. She whispered, He'll come for me. Jonas nodded once. Let him try. Before dawn, Evelyn woke to a soft cry. One of the babies. Then another. Cordelia lifted one and handed her gently to Evelyn. She's hungry, the older woman murmured. Evelyn's arms trembled as she held her daughter to her breast. The baby latched weakly at first, then stronger, her tiny fingers curling around the fabric of Evelyn's blouse. Evelyn began to cry, silent tears falling on her baby's hair. Cordelia rubbed her shoulder. That's it. Let it out. The barn door opened again. Jonas stepped inside, rubbing frost from his beard. His eyes softened when he saw Evelyn holding her daughter. That's a sight, he murmured. Evelyn tried to hide her tears, but Jonas shook his head. No need to be ashamed of what's human, he said, or what's good. Their eyes met and held. For a moment, the cold world outside didn't exist. Cordelia suddenly cleared her throat loudly. Well, she announced, I'll go warm more blankets. She muttered something about not interrupting and shuffled off. Evelyn's cheeks burned. Jonas looked down, a tiny half-smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. She's subtle as a mule kick. I'm sorry, Evelyn whispered. For what? For all of this. Jonas shook his head. You don't apologize for surviving. She swallowed. Why did you come down that road last night? Nobody rides in a storm like that. Jonas pulled his gloves off, warming his hands near the fire. I heard a noise, he said. Thought it was a coyote. Then I heard a cry. Didn't sound like an animal. So I followed it. Her breath trembled. That cry saved us. His eyes lifted. No, he said softly. You saved yourself. I just showed up in time. Evelyn stared at him. At the man who had found her in the dark, carried her through the storm, held her daughters against his own chest to warm them. Jonas, she whispered, I don't know how to thank you. Don't, he murmured. Just rest. Heal. That's thanks enough. Evelyn opened her mouth to speak again, but the barn's heavy silence suddenly sharpened. Jonas felt it too. His head turned. His shoulders stiffened. His hand dropped instinctively toward the revolver at his hip. Evelyn's heart began to race. What is it? She whispered. Jonas didn't answer. He stepped toward the door, slow, quiet, alert. The faint crunch of footsteps echoed from outside. Not snow falling, not wind. Footsteps. Crunch, 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 coming closer. Evelyn's blood turned cold. Jonas looked over his shoulder, voice low, protective, steady. Evelyn, stay behind the fire. Cover the babies. Don't move unless I tell you. Her breath came fast. Is it? Yes, Jonas said, his voice tightening. It's a man. He reached for the door, gripped the handle, and pulled it open. Snow blew in. A shape stood outside. A voice cut through the icy dawn. Barrett, the man barked. Where's my wife? Evelyn's heart stopped. Caleb had come. Snow swirled around the doorway in wild, twisting gusts as Caleb Wyatt stood on the threshold of Jonas Barrett's barn. His coat flapped open, his boots were crusted with ice, and the fury in his eyes burned hotter than the storm behind him. Jonas didn't move from the doorway. He stood square, unshaken, blocking the entrance with the stillness of a mountain. His breath rose in slow, controlled clouds in the morning air. Caleb jabbed a shaking finger past him. My wife is in there, he snarled. I can smell her. Move aside. Jonas didn't blink. Go home, Wyatt. This is my home. Caleb shouted. My land. My woman. My children. Jonas's voice cut through the cold like a blade. You left them to die. Caleb's eyes twitched. His jaw clenched. He spat into the snow. That woman was cursed. Those babies too. I was doing God's work. Jonas stepped forward once. Caleb stumbled back. God, Jonas said, voice low and dangerous. God didn't tie her to a fence post in a blizzard. You did that. Caleb reached toward his belt. Jonas drew faster. Not wild. Not reckless. Just steady. The sound of his revolver cocking echoed like thunder inside the barn. Don't, Jonas warned. Caleb froze, hand inches from his holster. You'd shoot me, Caleb hissed. If it keeps Evelyn and those little girls safe, Jonas answered yes. Behind the fire, Evelyn clutched her children tighter. Her pulse throbbed in her throat. Fear crawled up her spine, but something else rose too. A feeling she had never known in her married life. Someone was standing for her. For her daughters. For once, she wasn't alone. Cordelia murmured, "Stay low, sweetheart," as she shielded the newborns with her body. Caleb's gaze darted wildly around Jonas, as if trying to see inside the barn. "She's my wife," he snarled again, voice cracking. "She can't run off. Can't make her own choices. She belongs to me." Jonas stepped closer, boots crunching in the snow. "She doesn't belong to anyone," he said, "least of all a man who'd kill her." Caleb's voice rose into a mad pitch. "I didn't kill her. You tried," Jonas said. Caleb's eyes bulged. "I was purifying her. You don't know what she's done. She gave me 3 daughters. 3 curses. 3 proofs she's been touched by evil." Jonas's expression darkened into something cold and dangerous. "Children aren't curses. They're blessings." Caleb snarled. "You try living with 3 crying girls. You try dealing with a woman who talks back, who questions, who—" Jonas's voice cut him off like an axe. "She survived you." Caleb jerked as though struck. Jonas's voice stayed steady, even. "And she'll never go back to you." Caleb stared. A long, breathless silence. Then Caleb lunged. Jonas moved faster than a rattler strike. His arm swung, his fist landing squarely in Caleb's jaw. Caleb hit the snow hard, spitting blood, clutching his face. He scrambled to his feet, wild-eyed and panting. "You'll pay for this, Barrett," he wheezed. "Your whole ranch. You'll regret taking what's mine." Jonas leveled the barrel of his revolver. "You step 1 boot closer," he said, "and I'll finish what you started out there on that fence." Caleb seemed to understand he was 1 second from dying. He backed away. 1 step, then another. Jonas followed him out into the yard, gun still trained. Caleb hesitated. "If she doesn't come home with me," he growled, "I'll have the sheriff out here before sundown. You're stealing another man's wife." "She's not property," Jonas replied. "She's mine." "No," Jonas said, quiet, firm, final. "She's protected." The words hung frozen in the air. Caleb spat a final curse and mounted his horse. Snow kicked up behind him as he rode off toward the valley. Jonas watched him go until he disappeared behind the white ridge. Only then did he lower the gun. Only then did he breathe. He returned to the barn slowly, like a man bracing himself for something fragile. Evelyn watched him step inside again, snow melting off his coat. He shut the door behind him and leaned back against it, letting out a long breath. Cordelia exhaled too. "I thought he was going to shoot," she whispered. Jonas shook his head. "He wanted to, but he's a coward. Cowards don't start fights they can't win." Evelyn's hands trembled as she held her daughters. "He's coming back," she whispered. "I know him. He won't let this go." Jonas met her eyes. "I'm not letting you go either." The words hit Evelyn like warmth to her frozen bones. "I don't understand," she said, voice cracking. "Why risk this? Why risk your land, your life, for someone you found in the snow?" Jonas stepped closer. He didn't touch her. He didn't loom. He just knelt beside her again, as he had the night before. "I don't help because I owe something," he said softly. "I help because it's right." She swallowed hard. "But he'll bring the sheriff. Let him. He'll tell them lies. I'll tell them the truth. He'll say I ran from home." "You didn't run," Jonas said. "You survived." Her breath shook. "You don't know the half of what he's capable of." Jonas held her gaze without blinking. "Then tell me." A tiny sound escaped her, half sob, half exhale. I'm afraid, she whispered. I know. His voice softened. But fear doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've lived through hell. A tear rolled down her cheek. Jonas, he'll kill me if I go back. Jonas's eyes darkened like storm clouds. You're not going back. But the law, Evelyn. He leaned in, voice rock steady. I'd stand between you and that man, even if the entire territory came riding with him. Her breath caught. He meant it. Every word. Cordelia wiped her hands on her apron. Well, she grumbled gently, if that fool comes back, he'll be staring down the wrong end of Jonas Barrett's rifle. That's enough assurance for any woman. Jonas looked away, almost embarrassed. Evelyn watched him. His patience, his steadiness, the way he stood between her and danger without asking for a thing in return. For the first time in her life, she felt something new. Safe. Jonas spent the next hours reinforcing the barn doors, checking the horses, preparing the ranch in case Caleb returned. Evelyn watched him through half-open eyes. He moved like a man who had spent years carrying burdens heavier than logs. His shoulders broad, his steps steady, his gaze always scanning the ridge. A protector, a guardian, a man built for weather and hardship. Her daughters slept warm between heating stones and layered quilts. Cordelia hovered near them like a grandmother hen, humming, knitting, praying under her breath. Evelyn tried to rise once. Her legs gave out. She caught herself on a hay bale. Jonas was there immediately. He stopped himself, voice softening. Easy. She leaned against the stall, breath shaky. I just wanted to stand. Not yet. I need to see my girls. You will, but not on your feet. He bent and lifted her without asking, slowly, gently, with the care of a man who knew broken things. Evelyn tensed instinctively. Jonas's voice dropped. I'll put you down whenever you say. She didn't say it. He carried her to her daughters and knelt with her, letting her lean against him as she touched each tiny forehead. Her voice trembled. They're warmer. Because of you, he murmured. She shook her head weakly. Because of you. Their eyes met. A quiet beat passed between them. A breath. A pause. A warmth neither expected. Evelyn looked away first. Jonas, what will happen now? He didn't answer right away. He watched her daughters. He watched the fire. He watched the snow still falling outside. Then he spoke. Now. His voice was low, quiet, certain. Now we build a life where no man can ever lay a hand on you again. Evelyn's breath caught. But where would we go? We're not going anywhere. You let me stay here? After everything I bring with me? Jonas's eyes turned gentle. You don't bring trouble, Evelyn. Trouble did that on its own. She blinked hard, fighting more tears. Jonas, she whispered, I have nothing. He shook his head. You have 3 daughters. That's not nothing. That's everything. Her voice trembled. And you would help us? You would take that risk. He looked at her as if the answer was already carved into his bones. Already did. Her chest tightened. A tear slipped down her cheek. Jonas didn't wipe it. He let it fall, as if honoring it, as if it mattered. Outside, the storm finally began to break. Inside, something else began to form. A fragile, flickering beginning. The kind that could grow if given time. And warmth. And shelter. But before Evelyn could speak again, before Jonas could answer the question rising in her eyes, the barn door shuddered. A fist hammered against the wood. Barrett, a voice shouted. Sheriff Tanner here. Open up. Jonas rose slowly. His jaw tightened. He glanced back at Evelyn. You stay right here. Not a word. I'll handle this. Her heart pounded. Jonas. His voice went steady and calm. I won't let him take you. He walked toward the door and unlatched the bolt. The sheriff stood outside. Behind him, Caleb, smirking, alive with rage, and holding a folded paper. A legal order. Jonas, the sheriff said, voice uneasy. This man says you're harboring his wife. Jonas didn't blink. And I say he tried to murder her. The sheriff shifted. Caleb pushed forward. Doesn't matter, he said. She's mine. The law agrees. He shoved the paper into Jonas's chest. Jonas didn't look at it. He looked Caleb square in the eyes. No, he said quietly. She's not. Caleb's grin widened. Says right here she is. Jonas finally unfolded the paper. His expression didn't change. He handed it back calmly. Then he said the words that froze the sheriff and turned Caleb's smirk into a flicker of panic. "She's not yours anymore." Jonas stepped forward, voice low and unwavering. "I married her." The sheriff's jaw dropped. Caleb's face went stark white. Evelyn gasped, and the barn fell silent enough to hear the fire crack. Jonas Barrett didn't look back toward her. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't hesitate. He simply said, "She's my wife now." For a long moment, neither man breathed. Snow drifted lazily behind Sheriff Tanner as he stared between Jonas and Caleb, confusion written clear across his weathered face. "You married her?" Tanner asked slowly. Jonas didn't waver. "Yes." Caleb's mouth opened and closed like a dying fish. "You can't," he sputtered. "You can't just marry a woman who already has a husband." Jonas folded his arms. "She didn't have one." Caleb's eyes bulged. "I am her husband." Jonas's voice turned flint-hard. "Not after you left her to freeze." Tanner rubbed a hand over his face. "Jonas, this is serious business. A marriage ain't valid if it's valid," Jonas said. "Cordelia witnessed it. We said vows before God. We signed the book." Caleb lunged forward. "You stole my property." Jonas moved in front of him, so fast Evelyn barely saw it. He didn't raise his gun, didn't raise his fist. He didn't need to. He just stood there, broad, silent, immovable. "Say that word again," Jonas warned. Caleb took one look at the man blocking his path and scrambled back a step. Tanner cleared his throat, trying to gain control. "If she's saying she's your wife, Jonas, that complicates things. The law ain't exactly." Evelyn's voice cut through the barn like a bell. "She is." Everyone turned. Evelyn stood on shaking legs, one hand gripping the stall door, the other clutching a blanket around her shoulders. Her babies slept in a trough filled with quilts behind her, warming bricks glowing beside them. Her voice wavered, but she held the sheriff's gaze. "I'm Evelyn Barrett," she said, "and I will never go back to that man." Caleb's face twisted in rage. "You lying." Jonas stepped toward him, and Caleb's mouth snapped shut. Evelyn continued in a trembling whisper. "He tied me to a fence in a snowstorm. He told me God wanted me dead. He left our daughters to freeze to death." She swallowed hard. "If I hadn't been found, we would all be corpses this morning." Tanner's eyes widened with horror. "Why, is that true?" Caleb's voice cracked. "She's crazy. She's been touched by evil. Look at those children. They came out screaming like demons." Cordelia, normally gentle, allowed a sound that could have melted iron. "You fool," she snapped. "They screamed because they're alive." Tanner's jaw tightened. "Wyatt," he said, "you need to come with me to the jailhouse. We're going to sort this out before someone ends up dead." Caleb exploded. "You side with him? Over me? I side with truth," Tanner said firmly. Caleb pointed a trembling finger at Evelyn. "You think this is over? You think you can shame me? You think you can?" Jonas grabbed Caleb by the coat and lifted him a full inch off the ground. "Listen close," Jonas growled. "You ever step on my land again, you ever come near Evelyn or those babies, and I'll put you in the ground myself." Caleb's breath hitched. The sheriff looked between them, gauging the danger. "Wyatt," Tanner said carefully, "come on, don't make this worse." After a tense beat, Jonas dropped Caleb. Caleb stumbled back into the snow, shaking with fury and humiliation. Tanner led him toward the horses. But as Caleb mounted, he twisted in the saddle. "This isn't over," he hissed. "None of this is over. I'll get her back, Barrett. I'll take those girls. I'll—" Jonas took one step forward. Caleb galloped away. Tanner lingered only a moment. "I'll ride back later," he said. "Need to send word to the judge and figure what's lawful here." "But Jonas," Jonas raised a brow. "Don't leave her alone," Tanner warned. Jonas gave the sheriff a look that said he didn't need reminding. Tanner rode off. Snow swallowed him and Caleb both. The barn fell quiet. Only the crackle of the fire remained. Evelyn's knees gave out. Jonas lunged and caught her before she hit the ground. "It's all right," he murmured. "I've got you." She trembled violently. Not from cold, from everything else. Fear, shock, exhaustion, relief. all tangled together like barbed wire in her chest. Jonas carried her back to the blankets and knelt beside her. "You shouldn't have stood," he said softly. "I had to." Her voice broke. He needed to hear me say it. Jonas's gaze softened. "Well," he murmured he heard. Cordelia hurried to fetch more warm water for Evelyn's hands and face. "You're white as a sheet, child," she fretted. "Lay back. Slow your breathing." Evelyn tried, but the tremors wouldn't stop. Jonas sat beside her, one knee in the hay, steady as stone. "Breathe with me," he said quietly. He inhaled, slowly, deeply. She tried to match him. Her shaking eased. Tears escaped her eyes. "I've never talked back to him," she whispered. "Not like that. Not ever." Jonas nodded. "I believe you." Her voice quivered. "He's going to try again. He'll find a way." Jonas held her gaze. "Then he'll find me waiting." Her lip trembled. "I don't want you hurt because of me. I'm not afraid of Caleb Wyatt. You should be. He's mean and clever, and he doesn't let go of things." Jonas leaned in slightly. "I don't let go either." Their eyes locked. The barn went still. Her breath slowed, steadied, softened. Jonas Barrett wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He didn't swagger. But his quiet resolve filled every corner of the barn. Evelyn had never known someone like that. A protector who didn't demand obedience. A man who didn't raise his voice to get his way. A stranger who had shown her more kindness in one night than her husband had in 7 years. "You look exhausted," Jonas whispered. "Rest now. I'll be right here." She blinked slowly. "You promise?" He nodded. "On my life." She lay back, her daughters sleeping close beside her. Her eyes fluttered shut. Jonas kept watch, not moving, not blinking, not leaving her side. Cordelia joined him later, sitting on a hay bale, watching in the way a mother watches a son who doesn't realize he's showing his heart. "You meant what you said," she murmured. Jonas didn't look away from Evelyn. "Every word." Cordelia folded her hands. "You know what the town will say, don't you? About you taking in a married woman? Marrying her in a barn." "I know. And you don't care?" "No, you'll make enemies." "I've had plenty." Cordelia sighed softly. "She's breakable right now. Handle her gently." Jonas's voice was low. "I know how to hold breakable things." Cordelia nodded. "And Jonas?" "What?" "Don't go falling for her just because she needed rescuing." Jonas finally looked away from Evelyn and met Cordelia's eyes. "I'm not falling for her because she needed rescuing," he said. "I'm falling for her because she keeps standing when anyone else would have given up." Cordelia's expression softened. "Then you treat her like she deserves." "I intend to." The storm stopped around noon. Light filtered into the barn, thin and pale, but warm enough to melt icicles from the rafters. Evelyn woke slowly. Jonas was still beside her, still watching, still present, still steady. She blinked, confused. "You didn't sleep?" He shook his head. "Didn't need to. You stayed all night?" "I told you I'd be here." Her breath shivered. "You meant it." "I always mean what I say." Their eyes held for a heartbeat. Then another. Jonas cleared his throat, suddenly awkward. "You should eat." "Cordelia's heating broth." Evelyn nodded, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. "Jonas," she said faintly, "there's something I need to tell you." He tensed. "What is it?" She swallowed. "My marriage wasn't only cruel." He waited. Evelyn shut her eyes. "When Caleb first changed, when he became violent, it started because of the babies." Jonas's jaw tightened. "Because they were girls?" "Yes, but also because he believed." She hesitated, shame burning her cheeks. "He believed I'd been unfaithful." Jonas leaned closer. "Were you?" Her eyes flew open. "No, never." He nodded. "I didn't think so." She blinked. "You didn't?" "No, because a woman who'd risk her life to save her children isn't the kind who betrays vows." Her heart tightened. She whispered, "Jonas, what if the sheriff decides the marriage isn't real? What if he forces me back?" Jonas's voice dropped. "He won't." "How can you be sure?" Jonas leaned in, his forehead almost touching hers. "Because I'll make sure he can't." Her breath hitched. The barn door suddenly rattled again. Jonas was on his feet instantly. Sheriff Tanner stepped inside, alone, snow on his coat, hat in his hands. His expression was far more serious than before. "Jonas," he said. "Evelyn." Evelyn stiffened. Jonas stood between her and the sheriff without thinking. Tanner sighed. "I rode into town, told the judge what happened, told him about the fence, the storm, the babies." Evelyn trembled. Jonas didn't move. Tanner rubbed his neck. "There's a complication." Jonas's voice dropped to a growl. "What complication?" Tanner met his eyes. "Caleb filed charges." Evelyn gasped. Jonas's fists clenched. "What charges?" Tanner swallowed hard. "He's accusing you of kidnapping his wife." He turned to Evelyn. "And he's accusing you of trying to kill your own babies." Evelyn's world tilted. Jonas stepped forward like a storm breaking loose. "Tanner," he warned, "choose your next words carefully." Tanner held up his hands. "I don't believe it. You know I don't. But the judge signed a warrant." Evelyn's heart hammered. "What does that mean?" she whispered. The sheriff's voice softened. "It means I have to take you in." Jonas drew in a slow, dangerous breath. "No," he said. "You're not taking my wife anywhere." Tanner shook his head helplessly. "I don't have a choice." Jonas took another step forward. "Then you'll have to go through me." The sheriff paled. "Jonas, don't do something you can't take back." Jonas didn't blink. "I'd burn the whole godforsaken town before I let you drag Evelyn back to Caleb." Evelyn's voice shook. "Jonas," he lifted a hand to silence her, still staring Tanner down with a steady, unbreakable gaze. And he said the words that made the sheriff's breath catch. "You're not taking her." Tanner swallowed. "Barrett, please." Jonas stepped closer. "Over my dead body." Sheriff Tanner stood frozen in the doorway, breath fogging in the cold air, eyes darting between Jonas's clenched jaw and the 3 tiny babies sleeping behind the fire. The tension in the barn was tight enough to snap. "Jonas," Tanner said carefully, "you don't want to make yourself an outlaw over this." Jonas didn't move. Evelyn's heart pounded so loud she felt every beat in her throat. The sheriff tried again. "You know me. You know I'm not siding with Caleb. But the judge signed the warrant. I can't ignore that." "You can," Jonas said. "You just don't want to." Tanner swallowed. "This ain't about want. This is law." Jonas stepped in front of Evelyn, blocking her completely. "Law," he repeated quietly, "doesn't leave women tied to fences in a blizzard." Tanner winced. He knew Jonas was right. "But, Jonas, if you interfere, the judge will call for the marshals. They'll ride out here. 20 guns if need be." "Let them," Jonas said. "Jonas, let them." Tanner's voice dropped to a whisper. "You can't win against all that." Jonas's answer was soft, steady, terrifying. "I don't need to win. I just need to protect my family." Evelyn's breath caught. Family. No man had ever used that word for her. No man had ever wanted to. Her knees weakened. Cordelia moved to her side, clutching her arm. Tanner looked helplessly between them. "Jonas, I've got a responsibility. You know that. I don't want trouble between us." "You won't have it," Jonas said, "as long as you turn around and leave us be." Tanner closed his eyes a moment, shoulders sagging. A sheriff stuck between law and decency. Finally, he let out a long, tired sigh. "All right," he said. "I'm not dragging a woman fresh out of the snow across half the territory. Not with 3 newborns hanging by a thread." Evelyn exhaled shakily. "But," Tanner added, "I'm not tearing up the warrant either. I'll delay things. Buy you time. But Jonas, you better find a lawyer. A good one." Jonas nodded once. "I'll ride out at dawn." Tanner stepped back into the snow, hand on his hat against the wind. "Keep her safe," he said. "I'll do what I can from town." Then he shut the door gently behind him. The barn fell silent except for the fire crackling. Evelyn sank down onto a hay bale, trembling with relief and dread all tangled together. Cordelia hurried to her side. "Here now, sweetheart. Breathe. Breathe slow." Evelyn tried. Her hands had not stopped shaking. Jonas knelt in front of her, face steady and unreadable. "You all right?" She nodded weakly. "No," she whispered. "Yes. I don't know." Her voice cracked. "Jonas, I can't let you risk your life for me. For us." He shook his head. "It's not a risk." "How is it not?" "Because I don't regret 1 second of this." Evelyn stared at him, breath trembling. Even if you become an outlaw because of me? Jonas's eyes softened. If it means you're alive, then yes. Her throat tightened painfully. But why? She whispered. Why would you do this for someone you just met? Jonas's jaw worked once before he spoke. Because I know what it looks like when a woman stops believing she deserves better. Her breath hitched. Jonas continued, voice low and rough. And I'm damn tired of seeing good women punished for surviving. Evelyn's eyes filled. You don't even know me. I know enough. Cordelia slipped away to check the babies, giving them space without announcing it. Jonas took a slow breath. You want truth, Evelyn? All of it. She nodded. Then listen close. He leaned in, not touching her, not crowding, but close enough she could feel the warmth of him in the cold barn. You and those girls matter. More than you think. More than that man ever saw. And I'm not about to let the likes of Caleb Wyatt, or any lawman who listens to him, decide your fate. Evelyn swallowed, her voice small. I don't want you hurt. Jonas shook his head. That's not your burden to carry. Hours passed. Jonas reinforced the doors again, bracing them with planks and chains. Cordelia fed the babies drop by drop with a tiny cloth, keeping their fragile bodies warm. Evelyn tried to sleep, but every time she closed her eyes, Caleb's voice crashed through her memories. Cursed woman, 3 daughters, 3 failures, God wants you gone. Her breath hitched, and she curled in tighter around the blankets. Jonas saw from across the barn. He crossed the floor quietly and sat beside her. You're safe. She nodded, but her breathing stayed fast. He spoke again. Look at me. She did. Caleb can't touch you here. Not with me alive. Not with Cordelia watching. Not with the sheriff on our side for now. Her eyes glistened. You promise? Jonas didn't hesitate. With everything I am. The promise wrapped around her like warmth she hadn't known in years. Evelyn's breathing finally eased. She whispered, You don't know how long it's been since I felt protected. Jonas stared at her a long moment. I intend to make sure you never feel unprotected again. Her lips parted in a soft, shaky exhale. Why me? She asked. His voice dropped to a whisper. Because when I found you, his eyes held a shadow of something deep and old. You looked like someone who'd been fighting alone for far too long. Evelyn's chest tightened. And what if the law comes tomorrow? She whispered. Jonas's jaw hardened. Then I'll stand in front of you. And if Caleb comes, I'll stand between you. And if both come at once. Jonas leaned in, eyes unwavering. Then I'll die on my feet before I let either take you. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. Jonas reached up slowly, gently, asking permission with his eyes. She nodded. He brushed the tear away with the back of his knuckle, soft, careful, reverent. Evelyn closed her eyes, breath trembling. No man had ever touched her with tenderness. Not once. Until now. When the babies cried, Jonas stood before Evelyn could rise, lifting one tiny bundle with his massive hands like she was made of spun glass. The sight made Evelyn's breath catch. He held the infant against his chest, patting her back gently. Easy now, he whispered. Pop is here. Evelyn froze. She didn't know if he realized what he'd said, but Cordelia did. The older woman smiled into her knitting. Evelyn's voice came out in a breath. You called yourself. Jonas blinked, surprised by his own slip. He looked down at the baby in his arms, then at Evelyn. Slow, deliberate, steady. I meant it. Her lips trembled. You don't even know her name. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then tell me. Evelyn swallowed. Hannah, she whispered. Jonas repeated it softly. Hannah Barrett. Evelyn's heart broke open. She covered her mouth to hide the sob that slipped out. Jonas reached for her hand. Not pulling, not taking, just offering. Evelyn, he murmured, you're not alone anymore. She squeezed his hand, tears falling freely. For the first time since the fence, since the snow, since the years of silent suffering, she believed him. The barn door rattled again, louder this time. Jonas stiffened instantly. He handed Hannah gently to Cordelia and strode toward the door, gun already drawn. Evelyn held her breath. The door creaked open. A ranch hand stumbled inside, breathless and shaking snow from his hat. Jonas, sir, the man gasped. You need to come see this. Jonas's voice sharpened. What is it? The ranch hand swallowed hard. Riders, he said. Coming fast. A whole group. Looks like half the men from Crescent Hollow. Evelyn's blood turned to ice. Jonas holstered his gun slowly. How many? At least a dozen, sir. Cordelia froze. Evelyn felt her heartbeat falter. A dozen men. All coming here. The ranch hand added in a whisper. They're armed. Jonas straightened to his full height, shoulders broad as a doorway, jaws set like carved stone. He looked back at Evelyn, his wife now in name, in vow, in protection. Stay with Cordelia, he said. Don't move. Whatever happens. Her voice broke. Jonas, he stepped closer, lowered his forehead to hers briefly, breath warm in the cold barn. I'll come back, he whispered. Promise me, she pleaded. I promise. Then he turned, grabbed his rifle, and strode into the storm. The door slammed behind him, leaving Evelyn shaking, breath thin, heart twisted with fear. Outside, the sound of many horses thundered closer, loud enough to shake the walls. Something was coming. Something big. Something dangerous. And Jonas Barrett was walking straight into it. The ground shook as the riders thundered toward the ranch. Evelyn clutched the blanket around her shoulders, breath shallow. Snow blew through cracks in the barn walls, swirling across the floor like white smoke. Cordelia stood protectively over the babies, palms braced on the trough, eyes sharp. Outside, the storm had weakened, but the danger had not. Jonas Barrett walked into it like a man carved from iron. Evelyn moved toward the barn door before Cordelia caught her arm. Don't you dare, the older woman whispered fiercely. He needs you alive, not standing in the crossfire. Evelyn's heart hammered. I can't just sit here. You can, and you will. Tears welled in her eyes. Cordelia softened only slightly. He's doing this for you, sweetheart. Don't make him fight with fear in his back. Evelyn swallowed hard. She forced herself to stay rooted. But she listened. Every step, every crunch of boots, every snore of horses, every voice outside the barn. And then a loud shout. Barrett, we know she's in there. Evelyn's blood froze. The voice wasn't Caleb's. It was deeper, older, someone with authority. Cordelia stiffened. That's Rourke, she whispered. Judge's brother. Mean as a snake. Evelyn's knees threatened to give. Outside, Jonas's voice, deep, steady, cut through the cold. You men turn back around. This land ain't yours. Rourke spat. We've got a warrant to collect Wyatt's wife. Signed legal. You're hiding her, Barrett. That's a crime. Jonas didn't move. She's not his wife anymore. Another rider scoffed. You think some hayloft wedding counts? You're out of your mind. Jonas didn't answer. Rourke continued. Judge says the babies were born under sin. Says the woman's lying. Says Caleb's the victim. Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth. Jonas's voice stayed even, but she heard the edge in it. What Caleb is a coward. Rourke's tone sharpened. Move aside, Barrett. Last warning. Evelyn's breath caught. Cordelia whispered. Listen close now, this next part decides everything. Outside, Jonas stepped forward, boots crunching snow like breaking bone. You want to take her? His voice was calm as winter. Then you go through me. Rourke laughed harshly. Gladly, the men reached for their rifles. Evelyn's heart stopped. No, she whispered. Cordelia tightened her grip. Don't you move. Evelyn trembled violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. She waited for the gunshots, waited for the thunder, waited for the sound of Jonas Barrett falling dead in the snow. But instead, another voice rang out. Hold it right there. The barn door flew open behind them. Sheriff Tanner rushed inside, breathless. Evelyn, stay low, he warned. Then he swung back out into the storm. Evelyn scrambled toward a crack in the wall, peeking out with wide, terrified eyes. The sheriff stood between Jonas and the riders. What in God's name are you doing, Rourke? Tanner shouted. You bring all these armed men out here? For a woman in recovery? For 3 newborns? Rourke yanked a paper from his coat. I got legal orders. Tanner grabbed the paper, scanned it, then tore it clean in half. Not anymore. Gasps rippled through the riders. Jonas's eyes narrowed. Tanner, The sheriff handed Jonas a second paper. Fresh, crisp, stamped with a new seal. Judge changed his mind, Tanner said. Finally heard the truth about Caleb. Heard about the fence. Heard about the storm. Heard witnesses in town who saw the bruises. Evelyn covered her mouth. Cordelia whispered a prayer of thanks. Tanner pointed at the torn warrant. This here is void, meaning you boys are trespassing on private land with guns drawn. Rourke's face reddened. This ain't over, Tanner. Oh, it's real over, Tanner snapped. Judge issued a warrant for Caleb Wyatt, not Evelyn. He's wanted for attempted murder. The riders shifted, uncomfortable. Rourke spat into the snow. That woman bewitched you all. That's what this is. Jonas stepped in front of Tanner. No, he said quietly. She just survived. Tanner squared his shoulders beside him. And Caleb didn't. He's in custody now, brought in first light. Try taking her after that. I dare you. Rourke cursed, yanked his horse's reins, and motioned the riders away. One by one, they turned back toward town. The storm swallowed them. Jonas finally exhaled. Tanner clapped his shoulder. You're safe now, Barrett. She's safe. Jonas nodded, his eyes lifting toward the barn. Evelyn stumbled from behind the stall, gasping with relief. She pressed a hand to her chest. He's alive. He's alive. Cordelia steadied her. Go, she whispered. Before that man walks in here, thinking you fainted from fright. Evelyn rushed to the door just as Jonas stepped inside. Their eyes met. Everything inside her broke loose. She ran to him. Jonas caught her mid-step, his arms wrapping around her as she sobbed into his chest. He held her tight, lifting her off the ground without effort. I thought they were, she couldn't finish. I know, Jonas murmured into her hair. I know. He lowered her gently, but didn't let go. You came back, she whispered through tears. I told you I would. Her hands trembled as she held on to him. I can't lose you, she breathed. Jonas cupped her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. You won't, he whispered. I'm here. You're safe. Her lips trembled. Jonas, what happens now? He brushed a tear from her cheek. Now. His voice dropped low. Now we live. We heal. We raise your girls. She shook her head softly. Our girls. Jonas's breath caught. Cordelia, standing nearby, whispered, Thank the Lord, under her breath. Jonas leaned his forehead against Evelyn's. You sure you want that? He whispered. Evelyn nodded, tears shimmering in her eyes. I've never been surer of anything. He kissed her forehead, a soft, reverent touch. Then we build this life together, he murmured. They stood wrapped in each other as the sun finally broke through the clouds outside, casting light across the snow. The barn warmed around them. The babies slept peacefully. Cordelia wiped a tear quietly and pretended not to watch. And for the first time since the night Evelyn was dragged from her home, she felt something bloom inside her chest. Soft, fragile, but real. Hope. Jonas lifted her chin gently. You're mine to protect now, he whispered, and I'll protect you for the rest of my days. Evelyn rested her hand over his heart. And you're mine, she whispered back. The storm ended. The danger passed. But the bond forged in snow and fear held stronger than iron. Jonas Barrett took Evelyn's hand and led her toward their sleeping daughters. A family born in the cold, saved by a giant, grown from courage, lifted by love, and at last free. If you felt this tale in your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wild West Emotional Tales, where every story rides through the dust, the danger, and the kind of love that never dies. See you in the next tale, partner.